Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Deal Fishing Podcast. My name is Kevin,
My name is Mike.
and tonight we got another awesome show. We got a fun show for you. This episode is episode number 5, Mike. We've actually had 4 weeks of this, and then one extra episode. So I think it's going well so far. What do you think?
Well, I definitely enjoy being an overachiever. I feel that we probably could have fit one or two other ones in there because this is just too much fun. Sit
And,
around,
and
talk
maybe
fishing
maybe
for an
here
hour.
soon we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And we're gonna have some opportunities here, or at least in November and February to do an extra one. So I think that's going to be awesome. Tonight's show or today's show, whenever you're listening to this podcast, and thank you for listening to the podcast, is about fishing terms, whether they're popular terms or technical terms or even funnier and most important, slang terms for some things that anglers commonly use and do and catch in fishing. What do you think about that, Mike? How many can you think of right off the top of your head?
I think I needed to bring a notebook over here with me and a pen because maybe it would have been nice for us to keep track of how many baffle you and how many baffle me or just
Mm.
anything that stands out.
Well, that's the thing. I've seen all of them. So the
Oh,
format of the show tonight is that I've done my research and I've found. Let me scroll through my list here.
but you have a great
Over.
memory. You would remember which ones threw you for a loop or whatever, you know?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I will say that there are some that I didn't know until I looked them up. So yeah, definitely. Um, so yeah, we have 91 different terms. We will not get to all of those. Maybe. I don't know.
Let's
Maybe
go
we'll
for it.
fly through them. Let's do it.
Let's go
Before
for
we
it.
go on, I just want to thank the Boom Squad members. I don't see any in chat right now. Hopefully, my settings are right this time. But thank you for those Boom Squad members that come in on the YouTube side and watch live. And then thank you for everybody listening on the podcast. If you're enjoying it, please share it with other anglers you may know. And to both groups, if you enjoy the Real Deal Fishing Podcast and if you enjoy Palmetto Cats YouTube channel, check out shoppalmettocats.com. That's my website. You can support the channel by buying some Palmetto Cats merch. You can also check out upcoming events and even participate in some by registering. And we have a community calendar on there that'll show you all the events coming up in the community. Lots of tournaments nowadays, Mike.
I know. I feel so bad that I haven't signed up for any. A few of them even sounded like they might be my kind of gig. And the last few weeks have just flown by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people being sick and work. We have to work, right, to get paid. I told somebody today I wish the school district would pay me to go fishing, but anyway, I digress. If we're gonna get through 90 terms, we better get
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't
So,
pull my string.
So a lot of these terms, or some of these terms, are just technical terms that people new to fishing or maybe just started, or maybe you've been doing it for a while like me, and you just never quite knew what that term meant. So the format is I'm going to say the term, and Mike is going to give his best definition of what he thinks the term is. I'm going to give you an easy one to start off with.
Okay. But I was told there would be no math, right?
There is no math, but
All
you're
right,
good
thank
at
you.
math, so don't even joke. So the first one is an easy one. Artificials. What is an artificial when it comes to fishing?
I would think that would be referencing an artificial bait, like a plastic bait that's imitating something that, like a minnow or.
Yeah. So a general term used to apply to any man-made lure used to catch fish, as opposed to
Okay.
using natural bait or
Okay,
a.
so not just plastic. So I'll give myself a half point on that.
No, you got a full point. You got it.
All right.
All right. Here's one. And I know you'll know this one. Actually, this one has two definitions in the fishing world.
No pressure, right?
Action.
Action. Okay. Well, to me, that would be referencing the action of a rod,
Mm-hmm.
which is
So what?
the
Yeah.
wiggle wiggle, or where that rod bends and how it bends.
Mhm.
Beyond that, I would say that action to me would be if there's activity while you're fishing. But to me,
Yeah.
I call that activity. We've got a
Gotcha.
little action over here, a little action over there. I call it activity. So, but
Mhm.
am I wrong on number two there?
Oh no,
Definition.
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Absolutely right. And my settings weren't right, but I'm fixing those right now.
Okay.
All right, here's the next one. Yeah, so you get the action of the rod. When people talk about, bend and flex and
Hmm.
and fast or slow, medium action on a
Flex.
rod.
That's the word that I couldn't get
Yeah,
flex
flex.
out.
Yeah, and then action. Hey, we got a lot of action on the water today. Bait everywhere. Fish
Yep,
are
bait
tearing it
jumping.
up. How about this one? Uh, paper mouth.
Paper mouth. I believe that's referring to the crappie.
Yeah,
They have a
absolutely.
very thin mouth.
Hmm.
So you want to be very careful how you reel them in once
Mm.
you do hook them. And I haven't seen people violently hook set those fish just because
Hmm.
they don't want to just tear the hook right through the paper mouth.
Hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, you're talking about crappie or crappie, and that's one of those slang terms. And some people
Well, I
down
say crappie because right now I'm feeling kind of crappy, but
crappie. Yeah, y'all will have to forgive Mike if he coughs. He's was a little under the weather, but he's on the mend now. So, but
I'm a podcast superstar. I got to be
you
here for
are,
my
man.
adoring
You're
fans.
you're a number one superstar, America number one. Hashtag one. But so just because we're on crappy, um, you know, another term for crappy would be spec. Have you ever heard that one?
I have heard that one. I don't know which area of the country refers to them as
Mm-hmm.
specks. We do not in the Midwest. We call them crappie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a cousin in Florida who calls them specs. So maybe that's kind of where it came from. All right. So again, we're discussing, if you're just now starting to listen, if you're just coming in, we're talking about popular fishing terms, and some of those terms are slang like paper mouth, or actual fishing terms that maybe are just unique to the fishing world. How about backlash?
Well, this you would find a picture of me next to a round reel in the fishing dictionary. And the backlash is when the spool on your line pretty much explodes, and backlashes into itself. There,
Mhm.
I am an expert at this.
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, let's explain to the podcasters exactly what kind of happens when you backlash, also called bird nesting.
If you can explain, I will sit here and try to learn how to.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you don't have on a round reel or even a low profile reel, if which are basically um, reels that uh, are smaller and they have a spool on them, as opposed to well, I guess all reels have a spool, not a spinning reel, or it's actually called a conventional reel. But whenever you get a backlash, it's because you don't have enough tension on your spool. And so when you cast, if the spool goes faster than the line going out from the spool, then the spool will wrap up said line and cause it to knot up. So you want to make sure that you either have pressure on the spool with your thumb, the appropriate pressure to match the velocity at which you're casting, or you need to put the proper tension on the tensioner knob to make sure that that spool doesn't go as faster than the line going out. Was that a good explanation?
I like that explanation.
I like the word
don't think
velocity.
I don't think that it would have helped me with the reels that I have sent out across the nation that I just believed hated me.
Oh man. All right, let's go to so again, we're talking I'm giving fishing terms that Mike hasn't seen but he's probably heard before, most of them. And he's giving us his best definition. Bail. Now, we're not talking about bail like, you go to a blind date and she's not as pretty as you wanted her to be, so you bail. I'm not talking about that, Mike.
Okay. So when I get too loud in public, oftentimes I turn around and I tell people that I may need bail. Okay, no, really. On the reel, on
So
the
many
spinning
definitions.
reel, you have a bail, which is the metal. I want to say it's almost like
it's a ring,
like a ring, like a half circle.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bail which guides and continues to guide the line upon the spool.
Mm-hmm.
You flip this open so that way you can cast out, the line goes out. You then close it so that way you can retrieve the line by turning your crank there.
Yeah, I mean pretty close, pretty close. So the actual definition is the ring of metal which rotates around the fixed spool of the spinning reel. To bring in line. So you got that perfect.
Mm-hmm.
In order to cast the spinning reel, the bail must be flipped open.
See, I said it backwards.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. You got it.
That's Espanol.
There's also bail is another fishing term. If your boat is filling up with water, this is the action of filling up whatever you can scramble to find in the boat that can hold water and dumping it out of the boat. So
that's a scary definition.
I don't like that definition as much.
No, we're going to knock on some wood and hope that we don't have to ever hear of anybody doing that.
Or you can bail out of work to go fishing, which makes sure you got a good understanding boss if you do that.
Do that a lot.
But you're the boss.
Yeah.
How about this one? Barb. Not your friend from the salon or the play date mom, Barb, but a fishing. I need to stop doing that.
The barb would be a piece of the hook. On the tip of the hook, there oftentimes they have the little barb, so that way it sticks into the fish's mouth and
so you can't use the term to explain the definition.
Right? I know, but I did it anyway. And when you're entertaining and you try to present your made up definition because you don't know the good words, then
here's a word to throw in your definition: protruding. The protruding part of the hook.
I mean, if I had a notebook, I would just draw it for you, and you'd be like, "Yeah, that's it."
Well, listen, we have podcasters listening.
I know.
So we have to describe.
That's difficult for me, honestly. That's been very difficult for me.
So you should have been we should have flipped roles here.
Half the time, I sit here and I look at myself, and I'm just like, "What's wrong with my hair?" And Kevin's like, "Dude, they're listening. They don't care what your hair looks like." It's like,
it's that daggone hook thing.
Yeah.
That when it gets in your thumb, you know it's going to hurt to remove. That's right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's a protruding part of the hook, near the tip of the hook, where the action happens, where the hook goes into the fish's mouth, and it keeps the hook from backing out of a fish's mouth.
There are lots of places to fish in Europe that do not allow you to use a
Mm.
barbed hook because they believe that it damages the fish and threatens their livelihood.
Mm.
And so
Sounds
you
like they
have to
work for
use
YouTube.
barbless hooks. And here you are trying to catch 50, 60-pound carp, and
Hmm.
you don't get to have a barb. I mean, that adds a whole degree of difficulty.
Hmm. All right, here's one. Break strength.
Break strength. I
Hmm.
believe that would be referencing line,
Yeah.
and that's when they give it a rating of 2 pounds, 4 pounds, 6 pounds. That's the break
Test.
strength of
Yeah, the
the,
test.
yeah.
And that's the test you have to put it through to break it. Perfect. How about this one? This is a cool one that maybe we probably say it all the time, but and do it all the time, but we never really define it. Blind cast. Blind cast.
Well, I just to bring some of our friends to this, I've thought that Az does a blind cast when he casts backwards in his kayak, but I mean, that's just, I'm just saying he's throwing it out there. He doesn't even know what's going on. But
I
is
mean,
that what
that
they
could be
mean? Casting
that.
without knowing where it's actually going, or are they referencing what, if you're casting and you don't know if there's structure down there or something? Or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
tell
I
me.
mean, both are good applications. So the definition is a tactic used for prospecting, often in unfamiliar water, where the angler simply casts in different directions. So
Fair
basically,
enough.
like if you don't really have a good graph, you would do a lot of blind casts. But I guess, yeah, casting backwards like the kayakers do, that could definitely be another application for the term. I never really thought about that.
See, when I go to trivia on Friday nights, I like to come up with answers that may not be the correct answers, but if they happen to fit the parameters of the question and hit the clues that are laced inside of the question, I like my answer. I think it's fun. Sometimes I like my answer better than the actual answer.
Just don't win no money that way.
Yeah, don't.
So this is a term that I guess I've heard used recently. But here you go, polywogs.
Polywogs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that references bullheads. Is it
Yes,
bullheads or flat? No, it's bull.
yeah,
Yeah.
bullheads. You got it
Yeah,
right.
and again, I don't know which area of the country it is. I'll throw out the guess of Arkansas, but just because I don't
Close.
know.
Missouri and
See,
in Oklahoma, yellow bellies and chuckleheads are two other.
chucklehead.
Yeah, I never heard of that before. I've heard yellow bellies,
Oh,
but I've heard yellow belly used to describe a. No, I've heard yellow cat. Yellow
yep,
cat is
yellow
for
cat.
flathead. Yeah,
I've
so
heard my grandpa would
polywogs.
say, "Hey, that's a nice yellow belly on that one." I mean,
Yeah.
he would say that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, chucklehead.
Uh, yeah.
That's
No.
derogatory. You got to respect the bullhead
Ch-
better than that.
chuckleheads.
Here in
Something.
Iowa, the bullhead is an amazing flathead bait too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know that they hate each other, but one certainly likes to eat the other one whole.
Right. Yep. All right. Here's one that you're not going to like the definition for, and this was sent in. This was sent in by a fan.
All right, fan participation. Here
Yeah.
we go.
Sewer trout.
Oh, well, I can only imagine that they're referencing the common carp.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, here we affectionately refer to them sometimes as the Midwest salmon, but that's just
Midwest
because
salmon.
That's just because we try to not treat them as a total trash fish, even though they'll eat anything off the bottom. They'll even eat catfish bait.
I've never heard that term, sewer trout,
Yep.
but apparently in I guess Kentucky.
Oh, I would have guessed New York, so I would have been wrong again on the location.
I think sewer trout are probably rats in New
That's
York.
awesome. I mean, that's kind of like badge of honor. Awesome.
Speaking of rats. This is a regional thing.
Okay.
Rats to pertain to a fish.
I have heard rats being referenced to fish that are very small, and I've also heard them reference specifically channel catfish.
Mm.
That's those are the two examples that I can provide.
So the person that sent it to me is from Idaho. And they said that they have so many rainbow trout everywhere. They're like rats. And so they call rainbow trout rats in Idaho.
And they're
That came from our
referencing the population,
right.
the quantity of the population. They aren't
Exactly.
referencing the size that they're little rats compared to
Could be.
to a
But
big
then
one.
you got big rats in New York, so I don't know. But that was from our friend Snake River Catfish Slayer. He said that they call them trout or rats, rainbow trout rats. This one's easy. How about this? I'll give you the definition, and you tell me how many slang terms you can give me for this definition. That'll be fun. A very, very big fish.
Okay. If people are going to call something a big fish, but they want to sound cool, they're going to call it a leviathan, a donkey, a mule, a hippo, a manatee. They're going to call it
come on, you're missing some of the popular ones.
Oh, I know. I was gonna say I haven't even gotten down to like any of the like typical
Nail the typical
terms.
ones. Nail the typical ones.
Yep. Monster.
I got about 10 on this list.
And
there's a YouTube channel. Really popular one.
You know,
Slunger.
At this point, oh yeah,
Slunger.
I
never heard. That's an Ohio thing, I guess.
Yeah, and I thought that was specifically from Chris Sauter's dad.
Could be.
And it's awesome, but it's definitely nothing that I would think of right off the top of my head for sure.
You got a toad.
Slob. Yeah, a toad.
Slob.
Now, me personally, I've never known the difference between a toad and a frog. So whenever anybody says a toad, I'm like, are you sure it's not a frog? But that's just because I'm sarcastic and try to be funny. I always try to be the funniest person in the room. So
how about golly whopper?
I have heard that before. Never would use it. I got like an Alabama or a Georgia feeling, maybe.
Tennessee. That's
Tennessee.
Justin Johnson.
I went too far. I skipped over Tennessee.
How about the Whopper?
Yep, the Whopper. That's a good one.
A tank.
Some of our other friends here say Gary and Goober.
Yeah, sweet doggy.
Yeah, sweet doggy. And they all catch fish bigger than me.
Here's two that I've never heard before. A ham Duncan.
Never heard that.
And a Hammerstein. Never heard those before. But those are fan submitted.
Is a Hammerstein referencing a piano or something then? Is that the company that makes those?
No, that's a Steinway.
Steinway. Okay. Well, we're gonna start calling big fish Steinways then. Because I don't get it.
Muy Grande, Mondo. Yes, a Mondo.
Yeah.
All right. So talking about same category. Well, donkey could refer to other things. What can a donkey refer to other than just a fish? Big fish.
You mean the bait? People
Yeah,
throw
a
around
donkey
donkey
bait.
bait.
Yeah, donkey
And
weights.
yeah, donkey weights and donkey baits. So now we're talking epic stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't know epic stuff because I don't catch fish that big.
Me neither. Don't worry
No.
about it. How about shoulders?
That would be referencing the thickness of the fish, specifically to right just past its head. It looks really big, really wide, really thick shouldered.
I'm
I
gonna
have
I'm
seen
gonna
some
I'm gonna hit
bluegill
the
with
I'm
some
gonna hit the
shoulders.
X on that one. I'm
No,
gonna hit the X on that one.
not the girth of the fish.
No, so whenever a fish has shoulders, that means that it's a good fighting fish. You'll
Oh,
hear
that's
people
referencing
say,
the fight. It's not referencing
"Yeah,
its actual physical
it could be,
stature.
it could be," but I've heard people and I've said it where you're fighting a fish and you're like, "Ooh, this
Okay,
fish got some shoulders on him
okay. I like that. I
because he's
like that
tugging."
because he's
But
because he's hard. He's putting in some work. He's
yeah,
getting it done. Okay, because
strong people usually have broad shoulders.
that sounds better to me because I've seen a lot of 50-pound fish come into the boat or to the bank within like
Hmm.
2 or 3 minutes, and I'm disappointed as a viewer.
Yeah, they didn't have any
I'm
shoulders.
like, I'm like, that thing's that huge and it just gave up.
All right, here's a common one, but it's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. A rod. Just the word rod.
Just the word
If
rod.
let's say because you take it out of context and you're talking around people that don't fish. You say, "Yeah, I got a new rod the other day." They might
Mm.
say a hot rod, a dowling rod, a rod iron.
Anybody that I talked to would know exactly what I was talking about. And they would say to me, Mike, you really needed another rod? And I'd smile back and say, yes, I did.
None of your business. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
got one
with
coming,
rod.
I think tomorrow or the next day, Kevin. It's green.
Mm, yeah, and I know somebody, one of our members, will like that.
Yeah.
Get you
If I
some.
if I don't like it, I know where it might end up. It's green.
Yeah. So yeah, it could also be a pole. We could also call a
Yep.
rod a pole. But when we think it's pretty much self-explanatory if you reference fishing. But there's different aspects of what a rod can be and the pieces and everything. And there's a lot of things that go along with a rod. A lot of
Mhm.
other terms like action, which we mentioned before. But then you might hear somebody talking about the butt of a rod. What are they talking about there, Mike? The butt.
They're talking about the bottom, specifically the portion of the rod that is I was
Touches
gonna
the
say,
body.
yeah, that touches their body prior to, getting to the real
Mm-hmm.
seat.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Yeah.
of us
So,
older guys like real seats that have triggers on them. Some
mm,
people don't like that anymore.
so yeah. So the butt of the
Handle.
rod. People might be talking about the butt when they talk about is smooth or rounded or tapered or notched. So you might hear those terms, and it just refers to the shape of the bottom of the rod. So
Mhm.
if you were to stand one up end on end, and the butt would be what touches the ground. So it butts up against something, I guess you could say.
Do
Then
you
on
have
the
more
rod,
of
you
the
have,
terminology there of the
hmm
pieces of the rod?
yeah, you have the guides, and that's the metal eyes on the rod to which the line passes through.
Do you
Kind of
always
keeps.
call them eyes? I find
I
myself
call them
calling
eyes.
them eyelets, but I don't know if
Yeah.
that's just something that it's said around here or just something that I
Yeah.
said wrong and I've kept saying it wrong ever since.
Yeah, I think it's regional. I mean, I
Mhm.
always say eyes because that's my dad called them, but the technical term is the guides,
Guides.
which makes sense because it guides the line, you know, throughout
And
the length of the
guides
pole.
does not reference the rod tip, correct? It's always 9 guides plus tip.
I don't know.
The
I
top
didn't
one
get that
is
specific.
referenced differently since
Oh,
it's
okay.
built mounted differently.
Gotcha. Well, then you have a weight classification. So you'll hear people say like heavy, extra heavy, medium light. And that just basically gives you the stiffness of the rod from the butt up. Actually, no, it's from the reel seat up to the tip would be the stiffness of the rod. And of course, an extra heavy would have the most stiffness, probably to where only the top third or maybe even the top quarter of
Mhm.
the rod will be flexible. And the rest of it is what we call backbone. And so if you're fishing in high current, and we're going to have a show about rod selection as soon as we do all of our research and get everything so we know it down pat. But we'll talk about when you need to select the different rod strings. But so you may hear those terms, and then you have the ferrule, which I hate. I I hate 2-piece rods with a passion. If you've watched my channel, you know why. But the ferrule, tell us what the ferrule is, Mike, on a 2-piece rod.
That is the connection between the two pieces, the tip and the, I guess you would
Well, no,
call it.
it's the top half of the rod and the bottom half of the rod, and that's the little gasket where they hook together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so some of them will have uh, like rubber on it or hardened plastic. It's usually a different material than the rod, or at
In the
least
past, they
coated.
had metal. Quite often,
Yeah.
they had metal. Even if your rod was fiberglass, it would still have a
hmm
metal ferrule
And you
to
got to
put it
keep
together.
checking those connections because if you don't, and you
And
cast really hard one time,
and should the
those
rod tip accidentally
those two
fly,
those two pieces can come apart, and you might lose one in the Potomac River. I'm
and
just
if this
saying,
is ever caught on video,
you'll
then
never live it
people
down.
will never ever let you hear the end of it.
They'll never let it go. So you better just bring it up yourself so people can start laughing and get it over with. But
Funny
anyway,
people write songs about it even.
I know, right? So then
Yeah.
you have we're talking about the rod again. You'll have the reel seat, which Mike referenced,
Mhm.
and you have graphite, plastic, and aluminum. Usually are the 3 different materials. Is there anything else I'm missing? It's pretty much most of it.
I don't think so. We have the handle,
Yep.
which references the or the grip, I think they might call it.
The
You
grip.
have foregrip, and
hmm
then I
Back grip.
we always called it the butt, but that's not true
No,
because
that's
the
not the
butt
butt.
is actually the very bottom of the rod.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm telling everybody right now, just because we're on the topic, that balance, how long that foregrip, and what did you refer to the backside as?
Back grip.
Let's call it that. Sometimes
Let's
I
just go
actually
with it.
call it the handle.
It could be.
Um,
I mean, the handle sounds more
that,
righter.
however many inches that is versus the total length of the rod, really
hmm
creates the balance of the rod as you hold it in your hand.
hmm
Now that's changed every now and then, depending on what size reel you put on it and how much that reel weighs.
hmm
But that's very important for an angler to determine what is most comfortable to them, because
hmm
some rods have shorter handles
hmm
than others. Some rods have extremely long handles, and some anglers don't like
hmm
one versus the other. So very
Right.
important that you
Right.
guys check into that before you start buying one, 200, 300
Yeah.
different rods over the course of your
And
life.
one way you can test all those out is you can go to a catfish conference. And that's a perfect segue to talk about the Kansas City, Missouri Catfish Conference on November 19th and 20th is the first one this year. You can go to catfishconference.com to check out more information. And then there's also one in February in Louisville, Kentucky, February 25th and 26th. You can check that one out. Same exact show, maybe a few different vendors, but Mike and I will be at both of them. So
That's
you can come
right.
up and meet us.
I'm driving, so
But
that way I can put stuff into the back of my truck.
and I'm gonna buy stuff and put it in the back of Mike's truck, and he can ship it to me back in South
That's right.
Carolina.
That's right.
But yeah, so that's a great opportunity to test out, hold these rods, because I think the grip or the handle, as we refer to it, is what you really need to consider is how you reel in a fish. If you're the person that puts the butt on your leg and grabs the fore grip, then you need you don't need a long handle. But if you're like me and you put the handle up under your armpit and to reel in a fish, then you're going to want a longer handle so that you can grip it with your armpit. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that you got to consider, and you can't really judge that unless you know the length you want. But if you're new, or you're new to specialty rods like we're talking about, then you need to definitely know that. And then you have different materials those handles are made out of. You got a golf grip, you have a cork handle, you have an EVA foam handle, and then there's even paracord handles.
I've always
So there's a
been
bunch of different.
seduced by the cork handles.
I like cork too.
Oh, it's
They just
so
don't last
nice.
as long. You just got to
You're
take care of them.
you're supposed to seal them, is what I
Yeah,
learned.
yeah.
And I even had
Supposed
somebody
to.
send me some of the sealant. Haven't seen any of them yet.
All right, let's go into a non-catfishing term. Let's see.
I still have a shot at it. You never know.
What is a crankbait?
A crankbait is an artificial lure,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes painted up to imitate, some of the other little fish out there that the predatory fish will come at. Usually, it has one or two places where there's hooks are mounted onto it. It can or cannot. It can have a lip or it can be lipless.
Nope. That's different.
There aren't lipless crankbaits.
Well,
I've
so
seen them.
the technical term for
All
a
right, let's get
crankbait
technical.
is a bait, an artificial bait that you reel in, and the action is such of the bait by just cranking it.
Oh, that's a good definition. I like that. I
Yeah.
was
So whether it's
drowning there, and you let me drown that long with that when you had that great of a definition.
so if it's
Cool.
lipless, then it'll definitely just be whatever unless you add any extra action to the rod,
Oh, I
it's going to be
see.
whatever it is. But if it's got a lip, then it'll have a different action. So I guess you're right.
In the past,
And mhm.
I think people would just call them a plug. I thought about just saying, "Oh, that's a
Yeah,
plug,"
plug. Yeah, that's a great
but
term.
but would you have accepted that?
Well, I mean, that's
Given
a
given
term.
how
We're just
awesome your
talking about
definition
terms.
is, I don't like my definition. I don't like the plug, but no,
what
that's awesome.
about
See, that's
what about a
technical. I like that.
It is. It is. What? And that's something I didn't know.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't know.
awesome. That's awesome.
What about a chatterbait?
I know what it is, and I think I have it in my head. And we had
Mhm.
this is the one that we discussed in the pre-show warm up. But I really I don't
Go
know.
for it.
There's
Go
two
for it.
different baits that I have inside of my head,
Mhm.
and the one that I was thinking of actually has little they're almost like little metal arms or fins that come out, and they'll make even
Mhm.
more um, uh, ruckus,
Chattering.
in the water. And they actually
It
do. They actually, and I'm here. I
it
am.
chatter.
I'm trying to make the motion, and people are going to be listening, and the people who are watching us right now are like, what's wrong
Oh
with
my
Roy?
God, Mike's trying to fly over here.
We should have invited Tom in again. He'd have probably
Oh,
had
Tom will
boxes of them
burn
right
these
there.
up.
Yeah, Tom
So
would
the
just knock
definition
these
I
down.
have, and you're really close. It's a
Okay.
type, and I have the luxury of having the definitions in front of me, so I'm not on the hot seat.
I never
But
looked at them, but
Mike agreed to this. So,
yeah.
a type of lure combining a lead head jig with a metal blade. While retrieved, the blades create a chatter by swinging back and forth and tapping against the jig head.
So I might have been
You're
onto it there.
close. You were talking
But
about the.
yeah, they hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't say they hit the head. So I would still not count that one for me, but I was close.
Oh,
I feel good that I was close.
here you go. This will make you feel better. A ditch pickle.
Well, now you're actually the person who introduced me to this term.
Did I?
I had never heard it
Oh.
before that.
I
And
never heard it until I started doing YouTube. So
maybe that was one of the things that drew me in a little bit more to the Palmetto Cats channel, is that I was able to ask you about that, and you did give me an answer, and you didn't pick on me. So that is the affectionate term for the largemouth bass.
affectionate. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll accept.
I heard
All
Aaron
right.
say it the other day during him and Tom's live. He's like, "There's another ditch pickler coming by, and a bass boat goes zooming right past on the lake."
Here you go. Walking the dog. It's a bass term or a lure term. So, walking the dog is the technique of causing a surface plug to swim from left to right in a zigzagging pattern during the retrieve. Walking the dog.
I don't think I would have guessed that.
Here's one that I know one of our members would enjoy. Sunfish Assassin. A slab. A slab.
Well, the best thing that I can think of is usually people say that's a large panfish is what I'll say.
There you go.
People who have talked to me have referred to that several different ones in that family, or what?
Yeah, crappie, brim,
bluegill, and
bluegill, red ear, shellcracker. So yeah, that's exactly right. A big slab. All right, here's one. Buttoned. Buttoned. If you need a clue, let me know.
buttoned.
Mm-hmm. Clue?
Yeah, but just a little clue, not like
So
a.
if I'm reeling in a fish, I may say this. I may say stay buttoned.
Oh, stay hooked.
There you go.
You're asking the fish to stay hooked.
Okay. Yeah, buttoned up. Yep. Here you go. Structure.
Oh,
this is something I'll preface this. Like, people start talking about structure.
They get
YouTube,
specific and they get passionate.
And I was like, what structure? Like, there's a building down there. There's a tower. I don't get it. And then it went anyway. I'll let you do the definition first.
Here's the definition that I like. I don't know if it's everybody's definition, and I don't know if it's the correct one, but I like the definition that a
Mhm.
structure is anything that holds fish, which to me means holds fish near it, underneath it, by it, just in that vicinity to that piece of structure. Because a lot of people get upset. They're like, rocks are rocks, they aren't structure, or trees are trees, they aren't structure. And I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to enter that war of the term, but I would love to know what your term is.
Well,
What your
I took
definition
this
is.
straight from the internet, and
Okay.
I agree with it. I agree with it. Any physical underwater feature, which could be drops and humps in the bottom, sunk trees, wrecks, and even temperature barriers, which I didn't think about that one, can all be referred to as structure.
Hmm.
But some people may call some of those things cover as well. So,
Yeah.
like structure, a lot of people, especially in the catfishing community,
Hmm.
refer to structure as the physical contour of the bottom. Is it a dip, a hump, a flat, a ledge? And then cover would be the various other items that could be down there, like trees, rocks, uh, barriers, wrecks. Because you think structure, I guess they refer to structure as like the natural layout, right? That's the structure of the land, the layout of the land. And then cover is anything that a fish can hide under. So I guess that's where they get it from. But both are good definitions, and anybody who's fished for a while is going to know what you're talking about. But maybe new people probably would get a little confused. Like I didn't know what structure was. I was like, "What's that there on the bottom? That a log?" Yeah, there's a log right there. There's a rock right there. There's a wreck right there. There's a big hole there. I never had a term for it growing up. So now we have a term, structure, which has always been around. I just didn't know it. But that's a good one. That's a real good one. All right. How about an outrigger? Typically a saltwater
Yeah.
word.
I thought that the outrigger was the apparatus that helped get your bait further from the boat. It's almost like an arm or with a with like a pulley or something on it
Mm-hmm.
that can help widen stretch out your baits. I mean,
Yeah.
freshwater fishermen use planer boards to
Yes.
create the
Yes.
same effect,
Yes.
so to speak. And I got to tell you, planer boards are pretty cool. I have gone on a few guided fishing trips, and the last time we were on a reservoir and we used planer board. Now these were the smallest planer boards I've ever seen in my life, and I don't know anything about anything of that. But
Mm-hmm.
when you started drifting or dragging, I don't know what we were doing, one or the other or both, whatever. But once
Well,
I
those
saw
are actually terms.
those things widened out, and I think he had a couple pairs of them. And so one went even wider out there than the other, and it was
Mm-hmm.
so cool. But I didn't know how to read a bite off of them. Now the outrigger, because
That's tough.
I've been on the Pacific Ocean and in the Sea of Cortez. The outrigger, it's kind of different because I think there was like more of a violent action where when we were fishing last month, the reaction on the planer board was almost like a pop, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is that? And he's just like, oh yeah, he's like that was a hit, and I'm like, that was it. I was like, because I'm thinking like the outrigger. I'm thinking we're going to be like kaboom, and there was no kaboom. But we did catch two fish on planer boards. So that was pretty neat. And Lauren didn't understand the stop though. He was like, stop reeling for a second. Let me get this planer board unclipped here. Let me do this or what, And she's just like, don't tell me to stop. We don't have the fish yet.
We don't have time.
We don't have time. We got to get the fish in the net.
Yeah, I've only ever used outriggers one time, and I was on Lake Moultrie. I fished with Casey Nelms, and he had an older center console boat with it's offshore boat.
Nice. Yeah.
And he had outriggers on it. And basically, you just clip the line in. And when the fish hits it, it's enough pressure to pull that clip off.
Yeah.
Or pull the line out of the clip. And so it is violent.
It was like a pop. I was just like,
yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, very much.
And you don't see the rod go down. You just hear, a pow or a pop. And then you see the line go, and then the rod goes over. So I thought that outrigger actually hooks the fish.
You're right. Seeing that line move throughout the air, and then the rod. Oh yeah,
it's exciting.
I remember
man.
it all. That was 15 years ago, but I still remember it.
And so then with the planer boards, your rod is your planer board is the outrigger, but it takes the current to pull it out or the drift to pull it out. So you mentioned drifting and dragging. So I'll just go ahead and go over these because I was often confused about. So drifting, dragging, and trolling are 3 different actions, but they are all very similar.
I'm very confused by that as well because I am a bank fisherman, but I am going to continue to go on guided trips. And I may drifting and dragging around the country, knock on your doors, and have you take me out in your boats too. So I need to know these terms.
So drifting and dragging are often used interchangeably, which you can drift and drag at the same time. And you can troll while dragging. Okay? The drifting and the trolling are actually the 2 comparable terms and not the dragging. So the trolling is whenever you're moving throughout the water, actively fishing under power. So whether it's a trolling motor or a kicker engine or your main engine, whenever you're trolling, you're under power. You're still pulling baits. You're moving baits through the water, but you're under power. Drifting is the same thing. You're pulling baits through the water, whether they're suspended or dragging or whatever, but you're under the control of the current or the wind.
Okay.
Dragging is a specific word that refers to having your baits on the bottom and pulling them across the bottom, whether you're trolling or drifting. So, and that's why it's kind of weird because people use dragging and drifting interchangeably, which they're not alike. The word itself is not alike. So, the real term should be trolling or drifting, and you can drag baits doing both of them. But you can also troll baits suspended. You can also drift baits suspended, which is what a planer board does. You can do that with a planer board. So anyway, I hope that kind of clears that up. You really have to think about it, and really doing it helped clear that up for me. How you feeling over there?
I'm still confused. But now it makes sense because sometimes the trolling motor was not in the water. So I think that then was the difference. Yeah. Because our guide even said that too. He's like, oh, we're drifting now. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's referring to the action of the boat, right?
Yeah, think about it this way. If you were on a ship, right, and you had to get in a lifeboat, That lifeboat is drifting.
That makes sense. I
It's
thought it
drifting with
was
the
still
current or the
referring
wind.
to I thought it was still referring to what you were doing with your
Right.
your line.
Right. There
Yeah.
you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not a fishing technique. It's a way to employ a fishing technique, I guess you can say.
And
But now that we've lost everybody's attention.
I noticed that the speed was a little bit different. Like one, I felt we were moving just slightly quicker than the other. But
So that depends. Like usually so you also have a controlled drift. So you have a drift where you're just moving to wherever the current, whatever speed the current or the wind takes you. But then you have a controlled drift where you can use like a drift sock, or some people have like a downrigger type system where they have paddles on the back of their boats, and so they lower these fins in the water. And as long as the you don't have any current in the water, if the wind's blowing you, those paddles create resistance and slow you down. That's really expensive though. I use a drift sock, which is basically a cone shaped piece of fabric, um, with a wide end, a really wide end, and then a tapered end, really small at the other end. So it gathers water and slows you down, kind of like a drag a drag racer when they deploy a parachute.
mhm.
So, so hopefully that helps everybody out. Let's
How many
go on
terms
to
have we gone through, Kevin?
I don't know, man. I'm jumping around
We
because
are
they're in alphabetical order.
we are getting close to our hour mark. So I didn't
I
know
know.
if you wanted to do like a 5 minute what do they call that? When it's like the
Lightning round.
lightning round. How about a lightning? Can you give me even like a 2 minute lightning round?
All right, we'll go quick where we won't expound on any.
Okay.
Uh, terminal tackle.
Hooks, sinkers, swivels. I don't know how to define it though.
Good. That's, I mean, pretty much it. Um, a dink.
Small fish.
Yep. Let's see. A grinnell or mudfish.
A mudfish is a bowfin.
Yeah. So a grinnell is another name for a bowfin as well.
If you just left it at that, I would have never.
Missouri. I think Missouri.
There's a lot going on in Missouri now, isn't there?
Apparently.
Making fun of my bullheads and such. Not cool. Not cool, Missouri.
How about a leader line?
Leader line is a different material that you use to create your rig. Your Santee Cooper rig. Give me some bonus points, Kevin. It's not like monofilament and braid. It's actually different, isn't it?
I mean, it's monofilament. You can have monofilament
makes
leader.
nice knots. Or are you just referring to
Basically,
the actual piece of the line that's attached to the hook?
yeah. Basically,
Yeah.
you have your main line tied to a swivel, and then from your swivel to the hook, you have a different piece of line. It could be fluorocarbon or monofilament, usually, and usually it's heavier than your main line. And this is to like, especially when you're catfishing or shark fishing. They have the teeth and the sandpaper type teeth. So shark fishing, you'll use a metal leader so they can't cut through it. So basically, it's the line closest to the fish, which normally takes the most abuse.
Your
And so you kind
definition's
of need
way
that.
better than mine. I won't even beg for that point.
How about let's see, a foul hook?
That is when you do not hook the fish in the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Chum.
Chum can be lots of different things, but you are basically throwing bait out into the water with the hopes of drawing the fish into that area to feed, luring them.
Mm-hmm. And it's not legal everywhere, people. So check
No,
your
it's not.
laws.
No, it's not. Check your laws. We don't want to get you in trouble. Saying it was the real deal. Told me to do it.
Yeah, Mike Murillo said that it's really cool.
He chums with feed
How
corn all
about
the time. It's okay.
how about a Guggen?
A Guggen is once again an affectionate term for somebody who doesn't fish a lot, but seems to show up to ruin your fishing, like a novice or a new
Yeah, yeah.
new angler, so to speak.
I would even go as far as to say a new angler that doesn't really try to learn.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, there's no effort put in, no respect shown, thus none given, which is why I said it's an affectionate term.
How about lipping?
Lipping is when you pick the fish up by its lip. You really get your thumb and kind of clamp down on them and hold up your ditch pickle so that way you can show your friend Kevin that you caught a real nice one while trying to catfish.
Spooked.
Spooked, that's when the fish swim away because you have created some sort of a ruckus or a motion or an action, or even your shadow can spook the fish
Mm-hmm.
away.
Has a lot to do with the clarity of the water and the
Mhm.
noise you make.
Very much. Oh, I
Uh,
didn't think about sound, but
yeah.
I said ruckus. I
Yeah, I mean,
probably,
well, you're coming at it from a bank angle too.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
me, I have to like whenever I got people on the boat, I'm like, lower the anchor in, don't chunk it in.
yeah.
Which I mean, you throw. They're used to hearing splashes all the time, but not accompanied by a Yamaha engine. How about a gaff?
A gaff is a large hook
Mm-hmm.
that you can uh, stab the fish with to help hoist
Mm,
them into the
yeah,
boat or onto the bank.
only to be used on fish that you plan to eat,
Yes, yes, and
because
use these very
this.
carefully.
Yeah, yeah, they will get you.
Oh yeah, you can
They
put it
will
through your
get you.
hand, your other hand, your leg, whatever.
All right, two more.
A gaff is also a mistake, right?
Could be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you mess up, if you have a gaff with the gaff,
Yeah. You could
you
be
could end
going
up in
for
the
a
hospital.
ambulance ride.
And not to be, you could be a dead stick at that time, which is another fishing term. How about, so two more? Brackish.
Brackish references the condition of the water, like it's very
Mm-hmm.
muddy or dirty. Like
No,
the
it's
isn't that
it's it's mostly fresh water with some salt water in it. So like
my
where
bad.
my river, for instance, any tidal river, it's where the fresh water gets close to that tidal shift where the salt water
Oh,
comes in and the fresh water goes out.
so that's where the
So
bull sharks are.
yeah, bull sharks, manatee. We have blue crabs in my freshwater river. So
Oh,
yeah. Um, and then the last one. This is a tricky one. It could be a tricky one. A grand slam, and I'm not referring to Denny's, and I'm not referring to baseball.
well, there were many Grand Slam breakfasts at Denny's. There's
Tell
only
me
one
about it.
Denny's in Des Moines, and I have not yet
Mm,
gone to. It's been here for maybe the last 10 years. They were gone for so many years, and then they came back. I still
mm,
haven't gone there because it's at a truck stop.
mm.
So I'm just not interested
Well,
in
I
that.
don't have any problem with truckers.
If we're talking catfishing, the Grand Slam is catching one of each of the three different species of catfish: the channel cat, the blue cat, and the flathead.
So it could be that is a grand slam when referring to
Mhm.
catfish,
Yes.
but it could be other species. So some notable angling achievement, usually three popular species of fish
Oh.
from a certain area. So that
Oh,
way,
so
our bass fishing friends, our trout fishing friends, our saltwater for, whatever.
wow, I
Gotta
didn't
you gotta
realize that
include
they shared that term. That's
you gotta
nice.
be you gotta be inclusive, Murillo.
That's very sportsmanlike.
And stop talking about our truck driver friends.
Yeah.
I love truck drivers. My
I'm not
stepdad's a
going
truck
there.
driver.
I'm not going there. My brother goes there all the time. Dude, I had the Grand Slam breakfast.
Mm. When I worked at Denny's through college, and we used to have a sandwich called the Dagwood. Oh, it was a big, giant roll, like a face-sized roll of sourdough bread, and they would cut it in half and like scoop the insides
Sure.
of the top of the bread out, and then it would be like ham and bacon and eggs and cheese, like stacked. Oh man. Anyway, whew,
I
wow,
I can make that.
I'm getting a little perspirating there a little bit. Getting a little excited. We love food.
Yes, we do.
Well, everybody, is kind of a low key show tonight, but a fun show. Uh, as I was researching this, I learned a lot about different fishing terms, and especially, some from across the United States, and definitely some in other fishing species that I've never really thought of. The bass fishing, trout fishing, offshore fishing. So it's a great exercise in learning a little bit more about the terms that people use just for fishing. And I'm sure like every hobby or industry would uh would have the same type of terms too. So I think it's only fair that as anglers we learn the terminology in our industry, I guess you can say. Quotes. I did air quotes at that time. What do you think about it, Mike? Did you enjoy it?
Well, honestly, I had forgotten that I agreed to be quizzed for an hour because over the weekend I was just coughing and
Yeah.
I wasn't even part of the real report.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it every single minute of it, and my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
that was so much fun, and it felt good to be a part of the crowd again,
There
to
you
be
go.
part of the chat, and then I started thinking to myself, I got to get well, man. I got to get on that podcast on Tuesday, and then
My fans need
you
me.
you mentioned the format. I'm like, oh, I did agree to that. So I feel I did a little bit better than I was worried. I was worried because I know that you are definitely a student of the game. So I thought these were going to be even more technical than what you had thrown at me. And even then, you gave me a few that maybe I earned most of it. So
The best of what the
I showed well.
internet could provide, I gave.
Yeah.
And then some extra ones. I put out a poll on my YouTube channel, on my community page, for people to tell me their most unique fishing terms that they use. And most of them I had heard before, but there were some that were so specific. And I think some people even made them up. Like I think Jeremy's Tournament Cats made one up. He said the man in the blue suit refers to a blue catfish. And I was like,
Never
come on,
heard that.
Jeremy. Come on, man. Give me a break. I'll give him a hard time about it later.
There aren't blue cat too close to me, but I've never heard that.
Mm,
So that is
mm-mm,
very unique to
mm-mm,
my ears.
mm-hmm. But we had a great time tonight. Y'all, if you had a great time, if you're on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up. If you're listening on the podcast, consider checking out Palmetto Cat's YouTube channel where you can see production videos, other live streams. Mike just referenced the reel review that we did on Sunday night. And me and a couple other YouTubers and some fans came up and showed their favorite reels, whether they be spinning combos or bait casters or giant hand cranks for reels. You got to see it and you got to hear about it. And maybe you could learn a little bit and inform your decision making before you purchase a reel. So go check that out. Come over and hit the subscribe button and join the family over here on YouTube. But no matter what you do, we just thank you for listening to the podcast again today. And we ask that if you want to support the podcast and the Palmetto Cats YouTube channel, to check out the website, www.shoppalmettocats.com, where you can get Palmetto Cats merchandise. You can register for upcoming events, and you can see the community calendar and see what other people are doing. We have a lot of cool live stream fishing tournaments going on in the community, and I think you would really enjoy it. But Mike, that's all I got. Before I pray us out, do you have anything else you want to say to the peeps?
Thanks for reminding me. I need to go over to the website and get an Iron Cat t-shirt. Keep forgetting to do that.
Yep, go do that. Go do that. All right, everybody. Like we end every show, I'm going to pray us out, and then we'll bid you adieu. Heavenly Father, I thank you for another awesome show again. I thank you for all the people watching on YouTube, and I thank you for the people listening on the podcast. Lord, I pray that it would bring some benefit, if even just joy, of listening to whoever is listening. Lord, I pray that we could offer some kind of benefit towards people's lives. And even if it's just a little bit of entertainment, Lord, you've blessed it and you made it happen. We give you all the praise, honor, and glory. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Amen. All right, everybody. Until next time, we'll say happy fishing.